a glorious morning, a beautiful morning. The light of day comes forth. Greetings from the second age of reason. Hello. Today I'd like to talk about a subject called inflation. We've all seen it. We've all heard of it. It has a long and illustrious history. Inflation, by and large, is seen as money chasing goods and services, and the cost of the goods and services goes up and up, more so than perhaps the income of those who are buying them. That's classical inflation. Some people have cited a fear of imminent hyperinflation, which is when governments get out of hand and print and produce so much cash money that it becomes ridiculous, and so huge sums of inflation happen in such scenarios, such as in 1923 Germany, when Europe had made Germany pay for war reparations for World War I, such that people were using wheelbarrows to haul the cash to pay for things. I don't think that's going to happen here, and we'll get into that a little later. But there's other forms of inflation, forms that are not as obvious. So I'm going to just go through a few of those forms. One form is called dilution. Dilution is when, for instance, you get 10 ounces of soap in a bottle, and then in order to improve the profitability, they put in 9 ounces of soap and 1 ounce of water, assuming that water is free or much cheaper than the soap. That's dilution. Another form of inflation is portion reduction. And they usually do this by having the product in a very similar package, but giving you less of it. Typically, I've seen this in terms of sugar. It used to be always a 5-pound bag of sugar, but now it's a 4-pound bag of sugar for your convenience. Another form of inflation I call taxation. And I've seen this recently with things known as cigarettes. It wasn't more than a year or so ago that cigarettes were around $30 a carton, and now thanks to state and federal taxes are now near $75 a carton, and I know that they're probably around $100 a carton in Canada. Now, that is technically Philip Morris isn't making all that much more income. However, the government is now realizing much more revenue in taxes from this product, which is all very well and good, and that they're making all this money. However, if people would suddenly decide to stop smoking, suddenly they would find that the revenue stream is cut, which may cause other things to be focused on in terms of tax increases. I noticed they had tea parties recently about taxation, because England taxed the tea in the 1700s. Well, why didn't they have like a cigarette party instead? And instead of like tipping over all the tea into the bay, tip over loads and loads of cigarettes, thus cutting the government out of income. That would make a message. So I just thought I'd mention that. Another form of inflation are things like premiums and fees, like in the healthcare area. Used to be you paid your insurance, and insurance covered everything. I mean, I could show you doctor bills from the 1960s. Babies were delivered for $200. And that's the way it was. Well, now you have insurance with ever-increasing premiums, and with the government mandated probably insurance coming up, you're going to see that going up. And they say, well, it's a premium, it's not a tax. Well, if the government mandates insurance, and you have to pay it. Essentially, it's a tax. So that's another form of inflation via sort of a tax. And another sort of inflation is the inverted sort of inflation. This is because people are saying it looks like we're in a depression because prices and some wages are going down. The government has noticed that the income tax revenues are down probably over 20%. And as a result, they're having to cope with that. And they're saying it's deflation. Well, actually, it could be a sort of inflation. If the wages are going down and prices are going down at the same time, but the wages go down faster, people are falling behind. Now that's inflation, but it's from the opposite angle and view. So I thought I'd explain that as well, which is what may be coming here. Some have mentioned hyperinflation, and I'm coming back to that now. I don't think it's a real big possibility. And the reason is because they're not going to print tons and tons of paper money and deforest, the planet to make all this funny money. They're not going to. It would be electronic money, if anything. But on the other hand, the backlash in terms of the banks having people being able to pay off, mortgages with an hour's wages doesn't sit too well with them. So I don't foresee hyperinflation coming. So that's my take on that. Another kind of inflation is caused by fearmongering. They'll show you a hurricane out in the ocean and it's approaching. And they'll say, well, that hurricane might affect the refineries in the Gulf Coast. And right away, the price of gas goes up. And it hasn't even hit yet. Nor has it hit the supply chain. And it might never hit. And that way they have an anticipated inflationary effect. That's usually pretty minor. By and large, the worst inflationary effect comes from something called corruption. That we see this in year 2000 or so with the Enron thing. The price of petroleum and oil was driven up by Enron buying and selling to itself to make the prices go up. Very similar to maybe the way the stock market is getting pumped up right now. And back in the Reagan years, there was something called General Dynamics. A military contractor was selling like toilet seats for $400, way out of line prices, based on corruption. And that's what we have to fight today. So I just thought I'd explain some of the aspects of inflation, and you can rate this down below. You can discuss it, comment, because I think we have an inflationary thing, and they're using it to sort of remold, re-engineer the economy, relay out the classes. I mean, I guess they could do a sort of a forced hyperinflation. They could simply say, okay, everybody's salary stays the same, and all the prices go up tenfold. There you go, instant poverty. I still don't see that happen, but maybe I haven't seen all the signs, and I just thought I'd just share with you some of the things that I've noticed about inflation and its various manifestations. So that's all for now. Be seeing you.